What's up, folks? Heine's macro update, September 4th, Labor Day weekend. Hope you're all enjoying your weekend. So, I do macroeconomics and cycles. Cycle work is basically my hobby, has been for 20 years, and I work with a bunch of other guys that do this for a living. So, I'm just going to give you a quick update of kind of what I'm looking at. I'll keep it brief, but we're going to kind of cover, an array of things. So, moving right along, Europe. Europe's energy crisis is quite extensive, and I don't think that people understand how bad it really is. And I think that the fourth quarter of this year is going to be the pain point for not only Europe. We will see prices move up here in the U.S. as well, but mostly Europe is in a really tough spot. Now, this is a decent article from Zero that came out. I'll read Zero Hedge, but with a grain of salt. Some of the articles are fantastic. Some of them are just doom and bullshit. So read it with a skeptic's mind. Well, read everything with a skeptic's mind, but this one. But anyway, basically these guys are bailing out energy companies because they're going bankrupt because of the price of gas and natural gas. So this is going to be something to keep an eye on. I don't see this ending well for Europe this winter, considering the electricity prices throughout Europe have gone up 600%, and we're not even in the winter yet. So I don't know, how bad it's going to get. But what I'm telling you now is, from what I'm hearing, is that it's mind blowing. The trouble that they're in. Finland's government plans to offer euro 10 billion liquidity guarantees for energy sector. Anytime you see something like this, it's not good. Tracy's a dear friend of mine. I don't know who's on Twitter, but she's been in the front row on this and kind of been ahead of the curve. And what she's telling me is that it's almost catastrophic how bad their energy crisis is. Here's another article that came out this morning. They're trying to separate power prices from soaring costs of gas. So basically, in short, recently, last few days, U.S. European Union talked about a price cap for crude oil. So basically, they would allow them to buy crude from Russia, but at a discounted price or a capped price, so they couldn't raise it and make money. Which won't work, and is fantastic that they're even speculating this. But that's what pissed Russia off, and now Russia has basically continued the downtime for Gazprom. It was under maintenance, so it was shut off gas to Europe for maintenance, and now that's been delayed. They said that there's an oil leak. Many are speculating that this is going to be just a time where they just shut off gas to Europe completely. If that happens, then Europe is fucked in the wintertime. There's no other way to put it. So we'll continue to watch this and see if it is actually turned back on, or if there's some compromising moment. But as of now, this doesn't look good for them. So with me, okay, I'm morally relaxed in this fashion. If there's blood in the streets, you buy. And anyway, so from a money-making aspect, everything provides opportunity. I'm looking at a couple of these for the energy sector, but TEL is one of them. I like the fact that there's 20% short float. I don't think it'll be a GME or an AMC, but it will add to the bull case for this. I am long the January 12 calls. They're dirt cheap. I wanted coverage. I will tell you if I have a position in anything that I look at, because I believe in transparency and honesty. So I'm not pumping this, with the intent to sell to you and make a profit. That is not my intent. None of this is investment advice either. I got a CYA on everything these days. I'm just telling you my position and showing you why. So weekly aspect. It's holding this area for 410, whatever. Your 650 was your price up, that peak. And this is your monthly, but I really like the fact that there's a lot of volume accumulating. So There's definitely interest. Large congressional holding on this as well. That came out, I think, last year, earlier this year, that the Congress people, the insider trading guys, were all buying this. So for a target, I could see 20 or 22. Again, I'm long the January 12 calls, and they're like 10 cents or something. I mean, it's cheap. This is more of a macro lotto. I take a lot of these that will, if they hit, then they pay out substantially. Energy Transfer, so this is a multiple top. It needs over 12.5. But Energy Transfer is another company. This one's legit. TEL is actually under construction, so they're not really even shipping and anything else. They're waiting funding. And my guess is at some point, if Europe gets bad enough that our government and other people are going to start funding these companies to get energy over to Europe. That's basically my thesis. That's basically kind of what I'm looking at. So in Energy Transfer, I'm long the 15 calls in October and 16 calls in January. Again, they're cheap, just a spec. If I hit, wonderful. If not, it's just a macro lotto. My target on this one would be 20 as well. I don't know if it'll get up to 35, but this one is actually a normal company, unlike TEL, that actually works, that actually is, doing what it's supposed to and doing it well. So this, I think, has probably a higher percentage of moving north other than TEL. TEL would probably be more of a spike. That would be more of short squeeze type aspect bull market. This would be more of a substantial, probably long term. But again, that's why I'm taking the January calls. I think the fourth quarter of this year is going to be chaos. Again, follow Tracy. It's amazing what she's putting out, but it's terrifying at the same juncture. So the cycle in crude oil turns on September 13th. That's the target date. Typically, when the cycles turn, that doesn't mean that there's an extravagant event, but more of just a market structure change or news change or something like that. So does the announcement of price cap in crude oil change this market? Possibly. Does potentially Russia's answer to that by shutting off Gazprom to Europe? All of these add into, speculation of what will be the turning event. But that's kind of what we're looking at. So you had a June 8th high, and then we've kind of traversed all the way down. And we've kind of gotten comfortable in this market. There's not a whole lot of news about it other than that price cap that came out a couple days ago, or the price cap idea. So we'll see if this, returns back up to the north. Or does that event in September just produce destruction and we start to go, down? I don't know. We will see. Here's your monthly. On an idea for this, I'm not long this. I don't have any position, but I am eyeballing the 110, 120 call spread for January. It's 35 cents. That would be something I would look to play. Let's move over to Taiwan. Biden administration preps $1.1 billion arms sales to Taiwan. Awesome. What do you think China's going to do with that? So China was already pissed that Pelosi went over. We sent over a couple other congressional people, and now we're going to give them an arms sale. That's cool. So the threat here is not that China goes in and bombs Taiwan. The threat is that they blockade it. That would be my assumption and their retaliation for this. So if Taiwan gets blockaded by military vessels from China to stop any exports, that we lose all of our tech sector and we lose all of our chips. So that would be devastating to the tech sector. So NASDAQ would just crumble. I would assume it would just get ridiculously smashed. So that's what I'm eyeing over there, is a blockade and a block from any export from Taiwan. So you suffer, you make them suffer economically. And that's how, in my mind, China would do it to subdue them instead of bombing. And arguably that's what Russia did with Ukraine. They didn't go bomb them to kingdom come. They just surrounded them and kind of economically crushed them. But they've been okay because we send them money every week. So anyway, NVIDIA, let's look at this one. I have no position in this, but this is what I'm eyeing. So it took a crunch this last week, and it's probably going to do so more. Reason for that crunch was that the U.S. government told NVIDIA they could no longer ship chips to China. So I can see an immediately bear case for it, or short-term bear case for it. But if Intel and NVIDIA are your two prime U.S. chip makers, I would assume that that would turn this bullish. So if you shut off China, then you need chips for our economy and our goods and services. So I would assume that NVIDIA would go up because they're going to be really the only game in town. So this would be something I would be looking at. We'll see how far it goes down. 122, 123 seems like a decent target for a low. But I will start to look at call spreads here for January. I don't know whether I'll take it, but it's something to look at. Let's look at something else. Okay, this is kind of off the radar. It's kind of funny, though. The car industry is basically going to go through their '08. This was a great... I'll link this in the description of the video. But Lucky Lopez basically is a guy he's got a big YouTube channel. I didn't really know who he was. I watched this video, 58 minutes long, and it's fascinating. The lending practices and everything else from the banks for car loans is basically '08. And now you're starting to see the ramifications of that. We're going to see a collapse in used car prices. And everybody knows it's been elevated. First, they used the chips for the new cars is why they're expensive and everything else. But at some point, this thing is just going to crater. And this actually, there was news that came out, I think last week, where a used car dealer bought 30 cars at auction, and by the time he got back to his lot to post them for sale, the auction that happened right the day before discounted his lot, and so he was at an automatically marked down loss from where he had bought them because the auction was selling the same cars at a lower price a few days later. So if this happens, then no one's going to be buying cars because of that risk. And so you'll see a crater in prices. So anyway, if you have 58 minutes, this is a fascinating, fascinating video. So let's look at CarMax. Anyone with huge inventory is going to get smacked by this in theory. Okay. So I am definitely looking at a bear case for CarMax because if their existing lot happens, if all the repos happen, you're going to see a ton of market or cars hit the market. And I can't see how this is anywhere bullish for CarMax. So I believe the January 55.45 put spread's about 70 cents. So I'm going to also be looking at probably taking a shot at that. Anyway, world in disarray. I don't know. This was a quick macro update. I figured I'd share kind of what I'm looking at. And, you can draw your own conclusions and think about other plays that you might have or just food for thought. Anyway, I will be in the room if you have any questions, but I hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful weekend.